Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Miss Bolden.
How are you today?
Hanging in there. How about you?
Same.
Well, as long as we can hold our sanity in this craziness, I think we're in a good place.
That's right. I think it's a win if we're somewhat sane.
I think you guys are probably having a harder time having to deal with all of this and school and all of that, but that's awesome. I'm very very happy with the way things are happening, and my child is happy. For me, that's so important in this time.
It really is. Yeah, it's the small pleasures, right? And really just taking stock of, health and family. I think this time has really focused us in that way.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everything that you do.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. And, we're all in this together. That's what it's definitely feeling that way. So thank you for your support. Let's see, who else do we have on the call here today? Anyone want to unmute? Tell me who you are and who your student is.
Kathy Lomatan. My son is Owen, and he's a sophomore.
Nice to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, my name is Brenda Seaver. My son is Jake Gluck. He's a 10th grader and he's brand new to the school. Um, so our concern is that he doesn't really know kids in the area. So this has been pretty tough.
Well, I'm sure it has. What a way to start a new school, I'm so yeah, I can imagine that being really challenging. It is very challenging. Thank you for being here, Miss Seaver.
Yeah, well, thank you for offering the coffee chat.
Absolutely. Hey, Nikki, do you think we could do it on all display? Would that be okay?
Yeah, give me a second.
Thanks.
Is that better?
I'm trying to see the whole, what is it? The maybe
If you go up to your view and hit gallery view, maybe.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I only been on Zoom this entire year and I can't figure that out. And hi. Anyone else want to say hello?
I'm trying to do it, but I'm doing it on my phone, and so I don't know how to get gallery view on my phone, unlike on my iPad. Let's see, participants.
No. I don't know where it is on your iPhone, but there's a little view icon up in the top right-hand side.
Okay, let's see. I see me and I see you. Oh, well, I don't think I can do it on my phone because I know how to get gallery view normally. Let me see, Zoom. Nope, not that. That's my floor. Okay. Stop video participant. I thought participants would do it.
Yeah, not sure. I don't usually use my phone for these. I'm just excited.
Yeah.
My computer.
Oh, well, that's okay. Don't worry about me.
All right. Well, I will get started. And I don't have too many questions yet coming in. So hopefully, if you have a question during our presentation today, please feel free to unmute and ask your question. But first, I want to say good morning, and once again, thank to the PTSA and particularly Nikki. She's my partner in all of these coffees every month to set us up so we can have some time together. I hope you are well. I hope you are healthy and moderately sane with everything that's going on. And we can't take all of those things for granted for sure. I think this is a good time for us to have discussions around some of the asks that you have maybe seen from MCPS regarding surveys about return to school, what plans are for the return to school. I think that obviously there's just been a lot of question and a lot of challenge as we're planning for what seems to be the unknown. So I really wanted to spend some time, and we've got a really great question earlier. I'll start there. And then, of course, we can just have a discussion and hopefully I can answer many of your questions, or at least give you my best thinking at this time. Again, we're just facing a lot of unknowns. So that's part of the challenge. So I'll start by saying with the question that I received earlier today. And it is this: what can MCPS start doing now to ensure that students will be back in school in person full time in the fall of 2021? Is there a plan that has been drafted or that is currently being prepared for that objective? If so, what are the actions that need to start being taken now? Staff planning, infrastructural upgrades, marshaling the resources to make that happen. What are the hurdles that have been identified? Our MCPS, Board of Ed, Dr. Travis having serious discussions about getting rid of the less than 5 COVID-19 infections per 100,000 requirement and replacing it with more sensible criterion rooted in the feigning number of empirical and medical studies. Whew, that's a big question, and thank you for it. One thing I've learned in this time is to stay in my lane. So I'm going to try to answer this question, giving some overview of what MCPS is doing, but also specifically how we are responding and working here at Wooten to prepare for the return of our students whenever that should happen. So for MCPS, yes, there are lots of plans being made at the central office level to return students to school. Of course, MCPS wants to return, we all want students to return to school as quickly as possible, but of course, as safely as possible. And that is the challenge, right? Is that we are dealing with variables that are unpredictable and that they're changing. And then there obviously requires a response based on the evidence, based on the data that we have at any given time. And so the way that MCPS has organized thus far is that there are a number of work groups that there have building leaders, teachers, central office officials that work together, health officials on both the operations side of MCPS and the instructional side of MCPS, to prepare for two things. Really, we have our feet in two areas. One, what's happening now and responding to the fact that our students are still learning virtually, and that needs to continue, and that they're getting the very best education they can in the virtual world. So there are definitely conversations and adaptations being made to what we have around grading and curriculum in order to prepare or in order to continue the virtual learning environment. And then our other foot is firmly planted in when can students return, starting with small groups of students on out to our entire school communities coming back to school. And how will that happen? When will it happen? Again, based on all of the health requirements. I can tell you I'm on a few work groups in the evenings that are in this area of what does it look like? How do we do it? And there are a lot of other building leaders who are also being asked to serve on committees and to serve on these work groups so that we continue to plan for the return to school. I think in terms of getting a really good sense of where MCPS is with this, they're, obviously tuning into the board meetings. And if you've tuned into any of the board meetings, and I will say they're very long, but if you've tuned into any of the board meetings, you will notice that plans are shifting based on the current health circumstance. So what we thought might be a good plan in July or June in planning for this school year have definitely changed now that we're in November and we're getting different health matrices to balance this out. And we have some experiences of some of the surrounding school districts who are trying smaller groups and things of that nature. And there is a lot of benchmarking with other school districts at the county level to ensure that we're working somewhat together, although every school district has some nuances there. So there are preparations. I can assure you there are plans and preparations. I can assure you that this is an ongoing discussion and ongoing action to figure out what that entails when it's time for students to return to school. How does it impact here at Wooten? The county has set up or is setting up model schools so that we can, as building leaders, start to prepare the environment for students returning. What will classrooms look like? What will hallways look like? How will students come off of the bus and into their classrooms, developing pods within the schools? There are also infrastructure questions about making sure that the air filtration in the school is appropriate and up to par. And we are being asked to also make sure that we are setting up our own ways in which we are going to do this here at Wooten, and then having folks from central office to review our plans and to review how we're setting up the classroom environment, how we're going to be using our resources to have students coming back. In the same way, we're actually well into starting the plan for the 21-22 school year. And so we are also making sure that as we are looking at our staffing and we're looking at our scheduling options, we're keeping in mind that that's probably going to be, not a traditional way in which we can do this. If we have to plan for virtual instruction, hybrid instruction, in-person instruction, how do we flex staff members in order to be able to meet those needs and to meet those possibilities? And also, how do we make sure that we are accommodating the options that all of our families have with the staffing that we have? And so it's a rather complex way of looking at it, because that's usually not how we're staffing. We're staffing by subject matter and expertise in a field, and our teachers are teaching those classes, and students can be in a number of subjects at range. It's not by grade level that we plan for and that we schedule. So it's having us to think outside of the box, and so we have a scheduling committee that we meet, that we look at different possibilities. Of course, we're getting support from central office and guidance for how we're supposed to do this. So again, I want to assure you that there are lots of plans underway in order to eventually have our students return to the building. Dr. Smith said something recently that really resonated with me, and that is, and I think it applies for sure when we think about all of this, is that none of us has ever really led through a global pandemic and having to imagine school in these ways. And I think that's similar as parents and similar as students. And so really just understanding that, we are all really trying the best we can to understand how to best serve our students and to make some adjustments. And to be honest with you, I think our philosophy has been, well, what do we have to do? How are we going to make that work? And so I just want to, and as we come closer to the reality of returning to school, I will certainly be sure to communicate. I will be certainly ensure to let you know what those plans are and how it looks at Wooten to the very best of my ability, because you also have to have confidence in your students are coming back to a safe environment, and that we have thought of all of these different scenarios and different possibilities for students' return. And so the real challenge is, when will that be? And we're all, asking that question. We're all trying to, plan to the best of our ability, but also knowing that there are so many variables to this that it does make it incredibly challenging. So with that, I want to pause and make sure that I've addressed some of the question as best as I can, or if you have any follow-up questions.
I guess this is Brenda again, my only follow-up question to that, sorry, very long question is, to what extent are you guys looking at foreign models, not just local models, but it's the foreign models that can really tell us how to achieve success? And have has there been conversations with school systems in European countries about how they're doing it, since they truly are the role models right now?
Mhm. I can't speak with any certainty on that part in central office. I know that we're all trying, and nationally and globally, to understand how we do this. I would imagine that, yes, looking at some of those models is part of that equation. Um, but because we're all just trying to figure it out. And so that's a great question. I'll be certain to take it back to see if there are models globally that apply to our circumstance and apply to how we have schooling in the United States, and particularly in MCPS. But I think that we're all searching for the best way forward, and using wherever that comes from to be informed by some of those decisions and how they're working out.
Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions?
We've got a bunch of questions in the chat right now.
Yeah, just make sure you're give the drop.
Absolutely, Nikki. I can go to the chat and see what is there. And I also,
We've also got one raised hand. I don't know if you can see that in your participant list.
oh, sure. Let's go to the raised hand first. Is it Mr. Way?
Sorry, just need to unmute myself. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, this is Justine. I'm a mom of a freshman at Wooten. I saw the other messages in the chat, though. I think it's really challenging for the freshmen that they never set their foot in the school, and although they have this huge expectations from different teachers. And really, my child is, I think all the kids, though, are really trying all their best. But the confusion, or the most frustrating part for my child in particular, is to understand the teacher's expectation from all this virtual learning. Just the other day, though, the teacher sent out the assignments about different topics, all that. And then some of the topics that was even discussed during class, but he felt that was a continuation of what was discussed at class. So he took a proactive approach, and he learned it about Googling and searching, YouTubing and all that, and he answered the questions. But at the end, though, the teacher did not seem to expect that, and did not seem to appreciate that either. So I do not know how would the freshmen get understanding about what the teacher's expectation is, and how do they approach that. He even sent a message to the teacher, say, hey, what do you expect me to do next time when you send out a message? Send out some assignments that are not even being covered during the class. The teacher did not really get back to him. I hope she will eventually, so the kids would understand. So I see that not just my kids, and talking to the other moms though from different schools though, that have been a very frustrating for all of the kids. That what do we do? I do not even get to talk to my teacher. What do we expect? What do they expect? What can we do so we can meet each other's expectations? To get this online learning as not as frustrating as it has been. I know everybody is trying, but how can we meet somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, we just finished at the end of the first marking period. We surveyed students, staff, and parents, and thank you for those of you who were able to fill out that survey. And one of the data points was about clear expectations, and we saw that in all of the surveys, especially the students, that there was some concern about those expectations, and making sure that that's clear and that communication is clear. And so what we're doing now is taking that data to go back to see how we can kind of come back and say, okay, here are the places where our students are struggling. Here are the places that we need to be clear in our communication and in that expectation, and address it. Like you, I am concerned about all of our students, but particularly our 9th grade students, because like you said, they've never stepped foot in Wooten. They've not had an opportunity to really be able to kind of get the culture of the school, if you will, and the relationships and things of that nature. It's just such a huge transition, as we know. And so We are looking at what can we do that's specific and directed and targeted towards our ninth graders in particular, and helping them. But we do realize that we're struggling mightily, and we will try to, we're looking at putting a few more supports in place, pulling the teachers to really understand how they can back up a little bit to provide more of that clearer communication and seeing what's happening, particularly with our freshmen. We are aware, and we're frustrated too that our students are not having, that transition, and also this virtual environment has been challenging for them. So we're seeing the same thing you're seeing in terms of some of the concern around clear communication, those expectations, being able to have students manage and navigate, 7 classes in a virtual world, and having everything come at them in a similar fashion. What can we do to intervene there is our question, and putting some more supports in place school-wide to help with that. I would also say, and I say it a lot, reach out to the teacher and say, this is my concern. This is what my student has happened. Can you please clarify? Because I think sometimes, just in this virtual world, in the nature of communication and relationships in general, there is a big, there are times where it just isn't clear. And without that teacher knowing, it is going to be really challenging for them to correct and for them to adapt. And I can promise you that our teachers want that to happen. Our teachers, we all want our students to succeed. So to be able to reach out and to say, my student is having a difficult time, understanding what is expected of them when, can we please meet? Can you please call me? Can we please, can the student come to the virtual check-in or after school so we can sit down and make sure they're clear on what is to be expected? And also we take that back, and if there's if we're seeing that a lot, then the teacher to be able to pause for the whole class to say, here is what my expectations are. And that's typically what happens when we understand where that concern is.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Bolden. A follow-up question on that one. You said something about talking to the teacher. Evan is my first one coming to Wooten, right? I have a middle schooler at Camp Cabin John. So given that, though, as a mom of a freshman, I try not to step in. I think he's old enough, to take care of his own issues. So do you think it's still appropriate for mom to step in and talk to the teacher at the high school?
Oh, absolutely. And that's a great question. And we get it, a lot when students are transitioning to ninth grade. And yes, it is appropriate. It is important to also have that role in saying, and first following up with the student, were you able to do this? But there are times where certainly the parent needs to step in, and especially if you're seeing a theme or you're seeing something that's happening over their courses or a particular course, and they're trying to work it out. I think it's absolutely appropriate to step in, to talk to the counselor, to talk to the teacher, and to make sure that we're working together to get it back on track for the student. And when it is what's happening on the student front, and when it is time for you to say, okay, I need to have a conversation with this teacher. And I strongly encourage you to do that. We especially when we are not in school in the traditional setting as well, right? You're experiencing your student and helping and problem solving in ways that's different than what you've had to do that before. And so I think it is incredibly important to bring that back to the school, to partner with us, to explain to us what you're seeing on your side, so that we can help problem solve that. And I think it's even more important now based on the circumstances that we happen to be in.
Thank you very much. That's all my questions.
Absolutely. Okay, Nikki, if you can help me manage this is where I go a little off sometimes in terms of what's there. Okay, so there's a question in the chat. I have a question about filling out the family survey regarding second semester learning modes. Yes, that's a good one. So MCPS sent out the survey, obviously, and asking for options and asking families to determine which option is best for them for second semester. And again, I can't say this enough. This is all based on safe and healthy safety metrics and making sure that it is appropriate. And we're ready to have students return to school. I would say this. I would say have a conversation in your family with your student and make the best decision that you can make right now based on what you know, based on where you think you are as a family, all of those family circumstances that would definitely enter into and factor into if your student is able to return virtual, in person or virtually or some sort of hybrid. What we need right now is just a little bit of data to help us with our planning. How many families, if this option were to be available, starting the third marking period or second semester, how many students are we really actually planning for, right? How many families, would want some sort of hybrid? This just gives us that data. When I explain that we're, looking at our building and the infrastructure and all of the operation side, well, the same thing is true about our staffing. How would we need to, what are we planning for? Do we know this is going to change? Absolutely. Is it set in stone? What's going to happen if you fill this out and then, something changes for you and your family and your student is feeling like, I don't know, we're ready to go into the building, I prefer to remain virtual or someplace in between, then we're going to obviously accommodate that change. And so I want you to feel, it's important that we get some feedback and some data and have a starting place of how many families would choose a particular option. But I also think it's important to know that just like this situation that we're in, it is definitely fluid. And we know that we're going to continue to come back and look at the conditions and see if that's the decision that is still right for your student and for your family. So I just want to make sure I've answered. I didn't know if there was a specific question about it, but just to be sure that you fill out the survey, you give it your best thinking, and know that there's going to be some flexibility in it. That's all we can ask, and that's all we can request of you at this time. Okay, let's see. Another question. It was mentioned that teacher assignment could change for either virtual or in-person learning. It is a priority for my child to maintain her assigned teachers. Would one, excuse me, would one mode of learning be more likely to preserve teacher assignment? At this point, my big answer is I don't know yet. Again, we're in that phase of collecting data from families around what their choice is in terms of students coming back into the building. And in the same way, we're also collecting, we will be collecting that data and collecting that data for our staff to see the matches in terms of, where, how many staff members, how many students are coming back. And then we're going to have to plan from there. And so, so it's very challenging for me to give specifics about, students being able to be maintained with their staff. I would say there's a high probability that, we may not be able to do that because the first part of this is making sure that we have staff to match all of the students and how their learning will be accommodated, whether it's virtual or in person or some sort of hybrid as students are returning. So I know that I could not make that commitment right this second. Let's see. Yes, again, the question about a freshman having difficulty figuring out how to get help for one of her classes in the virtual world. Having never set foot in the school, she just doesn't know the different ways to access help, and other office hours with her teacher are extremely crowded. Can you please make some suggestions for other ways to get help with a class? A lot of the teachers, they have their classroom open either before or after the class, and they also have the focused student support. My strong suggestion would be to have your student either in the chat in class, to send a private chat to the teacher to say, I really need some help right now. Can we arrange a time for us to meet? Or come in the class or leave the class or stay after a little bit to talk to the teacher to find that time. If it is something that you're seeing that perhaps we need to get our counselor involved in, then please email the counselor and say, my student is just having a really challenging time here, and they can help to coordinate and to help speak to the teacher and advocate on your student's behalf. And also take advantage of the virtual check-ins. That is a great time. We're noticing now from the parent, student, and staff survey that they seem to be underutilized at this point. So I would say that is a really good opportunity to be able to check in and to be able to speak to the teacher. I'd also like to, a lot of the teachers are experimenting with using breakout rooms during the class period. And what they're doing is putting a student in a breakout room and then coming through and working through with each student so that they can have a little bit of one-on-one time. And so maybe ask your student too, does your teacher have you in a breakout room and check in with you? Because that would be also a really great opportunity to say, I need a little bit more support or help in this area because I don't, I have a question about it. So those would be my suggestions. But as always, if that's not getting the desired result and your student is still struggling with that, please reach out to the counselor or the administrator, and we can certainly help to accommodate that as well. Okay, so let's see. Parent view. Oh, yes. Okay. Parent view is a very poor system. Scores don't show up until several weeks after the test quiz. My MCPS was much better. Why did we change? Am I the only frustrated parent with parent view? No, you are not. Synergy, parent view, it has been a challenge for us all. Quite frankly, I think the timing of rolling out a new database system along with virtual learning, it has been challenging. I can answer the reason it changed over. MCPS was committed to having a one-stop shop for our database resources for students, staff, and parents. It has the potential to be really great, but I think we are still building to greatness, if I can put it that way. So yes, so there are, what's happening now is that we are giving input from every standpoint, parents, students, staff, to say, hey, these are the areas that we need to upgrade, that we need to get it better, it needs to be a better customer service, kind of friendlier kind of platform for our families, our students, our staff. And so I'm hoping that over time, and they're working, they being Octo and MCPS, they're working feverishly to get these upgrades and to build it so that it does fit the needs of our stakeholders here in MCPS. But in short, no, you're not the only one experiencing these concerns. There has been some lag time. There are some areas that are challenging right now, but we are working through them to make sure that they're improving. And we're hoping that you'll see that on your side as this year continues to progress. Excuse me. Okay. It would be nice if there were consistent policies regarding retakes, late work, etc. Some allow work to be handed in late without penalty, while some others don't. Some allow redo, some others don't. It's hard to keep track. Yes, I think you're right. It is hard to keep track. We are looking at some adjustments to grading and reporting for this second marking period. We've heard that feedback in terms of having more consistency, particularly when we're doing everything virtually. And so hopefully we'll be getting some guidance and we'll be sharing out some of those adjustments to some of those concerns that you're raising there, because we're experiencing that as well, that we need to make sure in this environment that we're giving kids every opportunity, and some of the things that we would do in the, in normal circumstances aren't quite translating. And so again, how do we adapt? How do we adjust? And of course, how do we communicate to what those requirements are to make sure that they're consistent and that all of the students know. We do have consistency with my MCPS, the classroom, and but again, I think what you're pointing to is just making sure that we understand some of the nuances of being in this virtual world, and making sure that we're not muddying that by having some inconsistencies. Typically, we plan by the departments, and PLCs plan events, assignments, and they decide as collaborative PLC groups, the biology group, the chemistry group, English 9, what their stance on particular assignments will be, when there will be a reteach, reassess opportunity. But even with that, because our school is so large and we have so many offerings, I can see how some of that could be concerning. So we are addressing this in our leadership team, and just trying to figure out where we need to continue to revise and edit some of the guidance that has been given, and what our current practices are. Okay, what's planned to be done for seniors? Appreciate the senior photos. Parents and seniors submitted a lot of suggestions for events that can be done safely outdoors. These events are being done safely all over the country. Where and when can seniors see the list and dates of events? How can parents help support these events? Those are great questions. So number one, because we follow what is the guidance that is given from the Montgomery County. And at this point, and we're still in a phase in which we are not allowed to have students on campus to do some of the events that you're talking about, painting parking lots, anything that involves students coming to the school building. The portraits was planned, it was approved, and and all of the schools, all of the high schools were allowed for that opportunity for our seniors. When we are able to do some of the gatherings outside, to be able for them to have those moments where they're getting together, we are certainly interested in doing that. At this time, we are very much working with MCPS and working with Montgomery County to be able to say what we are and are able to do, and when we're able to bring our students back to the building to have some of these events. We know they're important. I will say this, the senior planners who have been working to make lemonade out of lemons have been doing a great job, and they have been trying to connect the class virtually, sending postcards to every student, having virtual games. We know it's different. We know it's not what we want for our seniors and their experiences, but it is what we have right now. When conditions change, we will change. We are ready, and I get these emails from SGA, from seniors about, can we do this? Can we? And unfortunately, I feel like a wet blanket, because I'm saying we can't do this at this time. We're not allowed to do it at this time. When we are, like I said, when we are able, we will. In terms of some of the bigger events, we are planning to have a graduation for our students. We are planning to, see what other kind of senior events and activities that we would be able to do, hopefully in the spring. But we are certainly, challenged, because we're not able to offer as much as we would like to for our students right now. Okay, a freshman struggling with how tests are given in math class. It seems to change a lot as the teacher tries to find the sweet spot between preventing cheating and the technology. Yeah, will the format for tests settle down? I hope so. Again, just like, this is new for our students, it's new for our staff, and we're trying to use the technologies and use what we can to make sure that we're able to, provide a testing situation that is optimal for students, and we can know what they're learning and what they actually know. So yes, I'm hoping that now that we're into second quarter and we've experimented, we see what's working and what's not, that we can, that things will settle down, or so I hope, because it's been quite a roller coaster ride as we've been trying to find, like you said, that sweet spot and find that space where students understand what how they're going to be tested, and providing an environment where it's not stressful and it's not always changing. But I'll also take that back to the math department so that they know that that's still a concern. The second part of that is that he had tech issues with one test where an answer wasn't recorded, and submitting the drop response was counted as a retake for the class. And if you okay, by the teacher's rules, that only counted as a retake. If you could please just contact me on that, so that we can investigate that a little further, please. So tech issue should not be the reason why your student is marked down or anything like that. So if we could just let me know more specifics, I'd love to follow up with that individually. Our MCPS, Dr. Kell, is considering changing the 5 to 100,000 metric for spring to make it more reasonable. Are the teachers teachers unions blocking revisiting that? I can't answer that question, to be perfectly candid. I try to plan and do what I'm aware of and where we are currently. I would suggest, I can't answer that question, but maybe looking at more MCPS to see if that is a question there. And I can certainly put you in touch with who might be able to answer that question for you. Where can we view MAP scores? Oh, good question. As we were able to do so in the old system. So I understand the MAP scores are being loaded into Synergy. I thought that you were able to see them by now, but if you're not, I know that they're coming, and you will be able to view them in the same way that you were able to view them in the old system. I will check on that one too to see where they are with that, but they will be loaded in Synergy. Okay, we use the phone student Canvas app to track what's coming up for our kids. The to-do list is great. Parent view is a rear view mirror for assignments gone by. You need to see the student view. Thank you for offering that. That's really helpful. Yeah, there is another follow-up about flexibility of accepting work. Canvas issues. And so again, I think we'll go back. We have this feedback, and I think that we also, have a lot of experience from first marking period. And the last thing, and I tell this to staff, and I mean it, we don't want to frustrate students. This is frustrating and difficult and challenging enough. And because these are just such different times, we need to adapt and we need to change. So we need to make sure that that as we're getting this feedback and as we're getting data from our students about what those barriers are, that we do everything we can to eliminate them. And there will be more discussion about that and some changes, like I said, made for second marking period to address some of that. Okay, will PSAT for juniors be held online or on campus in January? Great question. I received information yesterday that there is planning underway for PSAT to be taken for juniors only in January I want to say it's like January 24th, if conditions allow. I keep saying maybe I should just start with that. That'll be my disclaimer. But it's only for juniors, and it's supposed to be in person at this point. That's what I know today. In terms of 10th graders having access to PSAT, there is planning for testing administration in the late spring of 2021. I don't have much more information on that other than they are planning for 10th graders, but for 11th graders, there will be a PSAT opportunity in January. As soon as we get more information, we'll certainly give that to you. Our plan, we have to have an order in for PSAT for juniors. We're planning to order PSATs for all of our juniors. And then we'll be putting out information in terms of how many juniors actually want to come and take it. And then we'll make sure that we get that information to you soon. Okay. All right, so again, question about or statement more about the rigidity of the reassess, the allowing or disallowing retakes, and and some of the rigidity around the tech issues. And so again, I share this feedback, and we make sure that we come back and make sure that we're not being inflexible and rigid. I think that at times, you know, it's challenging, quite frankly, of trying to, you know, adapt to this virtual environment. And I think teachers are doing their best. And sometimes I think it comes off as just, I've got to keep track of all my kids and I want them to do well. And I want to make sure they have these experiences. And that can be translated, you know, and as not caring, but I don't, you know, working with our staff as much as I do, I don't think that that is it. I think that trying to understand how best to adapt and to change is really what they're facing, along with you know, really caring that our students are getting the best experience, the curriculum. And, you know, I always remind everyone too that, you know, we're all operating within these 9-week windows for our marking period. So, you know, when you think about, you know, everyone having to start and end a marking period at the same time, and those experiences, and then having to submit grades at the same time, then that does start to, you know, shape the calendar. It starts to shape the experiences, and making sure that during that time, teachers are accountable for that, for that learning. So I just want to make sure that I'm also representing on the teacher side, you know, some of the pressures that exist, and making sure that they are that they're able to have students have the experiences, have opportunities, and also ensure that they're teaching the curriculum to the best of their ability. It's hard, right? And that's, I think, the bottom line. Everyone is really challenged by how to do that. But I don't want it to come off as being rigid or inflexible. So we can certainly go back and see where those areas are that we need to change and adapt. Let's see, please go back to chats. Is it possible to expand the retakes for freshmen given their circumstances? I am not talking about just tech issues. That is also on the table. We will see what we haven't gotten all of our marking period data yet. So we're certainly taking a look at that and seeing how our students are doing and what can we do. Retakes, I can't, you know, say right this very second that all retakes would be open for freshmen, but that is certainly something we can look into and see where it is necessary and see where we need to make those adjustments. Can we receive grades by mail and not just via the platforms? At this time, grades are, marking period 1 grades will be administered or put into parent view, on November 24th. If a family is not signed up to receive parent view notifications, then they will have a hard copy of the marking period 1 grades. And so that is where we are with that. I don't think the county is planning on mailing grades to all of our families. It will be just for those families who are not signed up with parent view at this time. Okay, Nikki, if you tell me if I missed something from the chat here.
No, I think you've gotten everything. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to unmute, raise your hand, or put something else in the chat.
Well, while we're waiting for that, I want to just wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I know I was saying this to staff. I know that it will look different for many of us and our families and friends, but it doesn't change the fact that we're very grateful that we have our family and friends and hopefully our health. And so I'm wishing you all the happiness that comes with that. And I also just want to say thank you. I know that this has been an incredibly heavy lift for our parents. Our students identified being, keeping motivated in this virtual world as one of the biggest things that's been challenging. And I know that you all are cheerleaders, you all are taskmasters, you all are, great listeners. You're a combination of a lot of things to keep our students encouraged and successful and really thriving in this environment. So with that, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate your questions. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate the ways that you engage to make this better for our students. And that is certainly something that we are all committed to together. So, I can't thank you enough for all of it. And no, it's not perfect. And yes, there are things we certainly have to continue to work on, as we talked about today. But I can't think of a better place and a better group of people to have to sort these problems out and these concerns out with. So I from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all that you're doing. And I wish you just a very safe and healthy and happy Thanksgiving. I think a few more things came into the chat. I think there was a, oh, thank you. Yeah. All right. Did I get everything? I'm not always great with chats.
Yeah, I think you got everything. I'll take a minute and just say a reminder that next month's PTSA meeting is going to be our annual alumni meeting. So normally when we're in person, we have returning students, usually recently graduated seniors who are freshmen in college, who come back and speak as a panel, as a group. It's usually a really well attended event. And so we're going to be doing it virtually still this year. I'm going to be reaching out to parents of those graduated seniors soon to solicit, to get students to come back. And we're going to do a little different. We're going to do some breakout rooms so that parents have a better chance to engage with those students. And so we're hoping that everyone will attend that. We've also got our logo design competition. So that is open to all Wooten students. The PTSA is looking for its own rebranding. I know the school is in the middle of rebranding or looking into that, and so is the PTSA. And so if your student has any artistic abilities and is interested in that, there are some cash prizes associated with that. So you don't either, if they're good digitally on the computer or good drawing, either way is good. They can submit a hand-drawn design or something digital on the computer. All the details are on the PTSA website. And anyone can reach out to me as well if they have specific questions about that, but those designs are due December 1st. That's all I've got for now.
All right. Well, if that's it, I think that's it for today. I hope you all have a great weekend and a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.